When she cheated, his maid gave him hope, a devastating love story you've never heard. The night hung heavy in the air, each moment draped in palpable tension, as Marcus stood staring at the shattered remnants of his world. His girlfriend's voice echoed in his mind moments before she disappeared into the shadows, her parting words, like ice crystals forming in his chest. "I'm leaving, Marcus. I found someone else." How could she do this? In an instant, all their dreams crumbled, leaving him raw and aching. But as the clock ticked past midnight, he found himself peering through the rain-streaked window at the street below. That's when he noticed something strange. There, in the flickering lamplight, stood Clara, his maid. It was unusual for her to be out at this hour. She was always so diligent, bustling about their home like a wearied little bird. But tonight, something was off. She shifted nervously, as if waiting for someone, her eyes darting back and forth, shimmered with an intensity that suggested secrets she dared not share. Curiosity gnawed at Marcus. Was it more than just cleaning? Why did Clara appear so different tonight? And as he watched her, a dark silhouette emerged from the alley, a man cloaked in an air of mystery. A shiver ran down his spine. He had seen this man before, briefly, at a distance, lurking near his building as if he belonged in the shadows. With every breath, Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Was he in danger? Or was this all tied to the end of his relationship? The thought gripped him as he wrestled with his next move. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let us connect. The atmosphere thickened as Clara hesitated, her breath visible in the cold air. Was she scared? Or was she plotting something? The man stepped closer, hands stuffed deep in the pockets of his coat, breaking the silence with a casual swagger that felt calculated. For the first time, Marcus noticed the sharp glimmer of something metallic peeking out from behind the man's collar, and his heart raced. Was it a weapon? Fear coursed through him, quickening his pulse. And then it happened. Clara turned her back to the man, her jaw clenched tight. What was she hiding? Did she know this man? Marcus's mind scrambled with questions, but his body froze in place, practically screaming for action. Every instinct told him to rush downstairs, to confront them, but he felt as if he were stuck in quicksand, the weight of betrayal paralyzing him. What if she was involved in something dark, something far beyond broken hearts and lost love? What was this danger around them? Marcus pressed a hand to his chest. It felt tight, like a vice. The apartment was filled with a sense of dread, echoing in the silence where love once flourished. As tension mounted, he knew he had to uncover the truth before it was too late. The shadows swallowed them both, but what was Clara really hiding? The night felt like a trap, and Marcus stood on the precipice of a truth he wasn't sure he could bear. Marcus couldn't breathe. He was caught between rage and despair, his heart thundering in his ears, as he watched the scene unfold below. Clara's shoulders tensed, and she leaned closer to the man, their whispered conversation drifting up like smoke toward him. What was she telling him? Was it about him? His blood rushed with confusion. Suddenly, the man's sharp laugh cut through the chill of the night, echoing like a gunshot in Marcus's mind. That laughter didn't belong in this deepening nightmare. He couldn't let it stand. He had to move. Adrenaline surged through him, and it pushed Marcus toward the door before he even realized it. The raw need for answers clawed at his insides. He stumbled down the dimly lit stairs, each step echoing in his mind. Panic propelled him forward. He reached the entrance and paused to take a breath. The street felt alien, the rain-slick pavement a mirror to the chaos swirling in him. He peeked around the corner, the shadowy figure still looming near Clara. A chill washed over him as he stepped into the light. "What the hell is going on?" The words exploded from his mouth, slicing through the night with a force he didn't know he had. Both Clara and the man froze, eyes widening in shock. Marcus Clara's voice had an edge of fear, mixed with something else he couldn't place. "What are you doing with him?" he snapped, his finger pointing accusingly. "What is going on?" The man straightened, a slow grin spreading across his face, the metallic glint now shining fully as he pulled away his collar. "Nice to finally meet you. Clara speaks of you often. What do you want?" Marcus growled, fists clenched. His instincts screamed at him to be careful. This wasn't just a chance encounter. Something deeper lurked beneath the surface. "Nothing really." The man shrugged, but his eyes told a different story. "I'm just making sure Clara gets what she deserves. After all, everyone has debts to pay, don't they?" There was an ominous layer to his words that sent tremors of apprehension down Marcus's spine. Clara shifted, her gaze darting from Marcus to the man and back again. "You don't understand," she began, desperation coating her words. "Then make me understand," he shouted, his heart pounding. The rain began to pour heavier, drumming a fast beat that mirrored his chaotic thoughts. The man stepped between them, menacing yet oddly relaxed. "Maybe all this chaos is just what you need to see the truth." He tilted his head, challenging Marcus with a gaze that was both piercing and knowing. "Have you ever asked Clara what she has been involved in?" Marcus's throat tightened. Had she been hiding more than just her feelings about their relationship? "No," Clara protested, desperation creeping into her voice. "Please, Marcus. It's not what you think. I swear." "Then tell me," he demanded. The moment hung in the air, electric and heavy, the rain a backdrop to the urgency unfurling before him. Clara opened her mouth, but instead of words, a chilling scream pierced the night. Marcus spun, just in time to see a figure slipping away from the shadows, darting down the alley with the speed of a predator. "What the hell?" He turned back to Clara, eyes wide in disbelief. "Who was that?" Before she could respond, the man shot forward, grabbing Clara's arm in a grip that seemed to crush her spirit. "It's time to go, Clara. Before he digs too deep." "Stop! Let her go!" Marcus lunged forward, but the man was already dragging Clara into the darkness, her terrified eyes locking onto his for a fleeting moment, begging him for help yet shrouded in an unspoken weight. As fear threaded through him, Marcus realized this was no longer just about betrayal. This was about a danger far bigger than he ever imagined. What had she gotten herself into? Would he lose her before he even had a chance to understand? His resolve hardened. He couldn't just stand by. He had to follow them, to uncover the truth that Clara had kept hidden. And as he raced into the darkness, he couldn't shake the thought, what if getting answers meant facing truly unimaginable horrors? The chase was just beginning. Marcus plunged into the alley, the shadows enveloping him like a shroud. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed against the brick walls, the rain slashing down in sheets that blurred his vision. Every instinct screamed for him to slow down, to think clearly. But Clara's frightened expression, the urgency in her eyes, propelled him forward. "What are you doing, Marcus?" he muttered to himself through gritted teeth. The man, whoever he was, had snatched her away in the blink of an eye, and just like that, she was gone. He rounded a corner, his pulse racing as he spotted their figures ahead, illuminated briefly by a flickering streetlight. The man shoved Clara against a wall, his shadow looming ominously over her. She looked fragile, cornered like a lost bird. "Let her go!" Marcus shouted, his words cutting through the din of rain. His heart pounded harder. He sprinted toward them, adrenaline fueling his every step. He wouldn't let fear take over. Not now. The man turned just as Marcus closed the distance. A sneer twisted his lips, menacing and confident. You should have stayed away, Marcus. You don't know what you're getting into. Just let her go. Marcus lunged forward, adrenaline blurring his senses. He swung his fist, aiming for the man's face. But the man sidestepped effortlessly, tossing Clara aside like she was a mere afterthought. She stumbled, fear and shock glimmering in her eyes, as she caught herself. Marcus, no! Without a second thought, he redirected his attack, focusing on the man. They collided, struggling for dominance. Marcus felt the stench of sweat and cigars as they grappled, each hit pounding sense into him. What do you want with her? He spat between breaths. Awareness, the man hissed, words like venom. She has tangled with things beyond your comprehension. You're better off dead than knowing the truth, kid. Marcus's mind reeled. Clara had never said a word about danger, about debts, about anything that could lead to this chaos. Suddenly, every moment they shared felt like a deception, a thin veneer hiding the shadows that crept closer. With a surge of strength, he managed to throw the man off balance. The two fell to the ground, grappling in the puddles forming around them. Clara's voice rose again, Marcus, run. Please! But he couldn't. He abandoned her no matter the cost. He threw a punch, connecting solidly. He didn't recognize the wildness in himself, the pure unbridled fear pushing him to fight for her. The man staggered back, momentarily dazed. As Marcus scrambled to his feet, Clara was right there, clutching his arm, her breathing ragged. We need to go now. But before they could escape, shadows flitted past them, more figures joining the fray. The man sneered again, wiping blood from his mouth with a casual arrogance. Thought you could just run away? There's nowhere to hide anymore. Panic ignited in Marcus. They were surrounded, and the throaty laughter of uncomfortable chaos filled the air. Clara squeezed his hand, her eyes pleading with him to figure out a way out. He felt a heaviness settle in his chest. He hadn't just put himself in danger, he'd dragged Clara into this nightmare. Tell me the truth, Marcus shouted at her over the rising chaos. What is really going on? What did you get involved in? But before she could respond, one of the newcomers pulled a knife from his belt and brandished it under the flickering streetlight. Let us see how brave you really are. Marcus's world tilted, dread crashing over him like an icy wave. Everything they loved, everything they built, threatened to crumble like a house of cards. Clara was on the verge of revealing everything, but time had run out. As the blade glinted ominously in the sparse light, Marcus knew they were standing at the precipice between life and a darker abyss. They needed to survive, but the truth was lurking, ravenous and unforgiving. What would Clara confess? Would they find a way out, or had the night claimed them as its own? Things were about to get messy. The air crackled with tension as Marcus fought to steady his breath. He could feel Clara's heartbeat matching his, a frantic rhythm that echoed all around them, intermingling with the pounding rain. The blade glinted menacingly, reflecting the light with a harsh glimmer. The man who brandished it took a menacing step forward. This is your last chance, he drawled, eyes narrowing as he sized them up like prey. Marcus's mind raced. He could never stand by while Clara was in danger. But what could he do against all of them? Panic clawed at his chest, knotting his insides. We can talk, he shouted, desperation dripping from his voice. You think I care about your little discussions? The knife wielder spat. You're in over your heads, and it's time for you both to learn that. He lunged, thrusting the blade toward Marcus with lethal intent. Instinct kicked in. Marcus pushed Clara behind him as he threw up his arm to deflect the blow. The blade sliced through the air with a terrifying swiftness, nicking Marcus's forearm. He hissed at the searing pain, warm blood trickling down his wrist. Clara gasped, gripping his shoulder, her eyes wide with horror. "Marcus, no!" Without a second thought, Marcus spun to face her, his eyes searching hers. "You need to tell me now. What is going on?" The world around them blurred. The shadows of the attackers, the rain-soaked alley, all faded into the background. "There are people involved," Clara whispered urgently, her voice trembling. "I owed a debt I didn't even know about. They're coming for what I took." "Debt?" he exclaimed, barely able to wrap his head around it. "You're not making sense." Another of the assailants sidled closer, wielding a metal pipe like it was some sort of weapon of art. "Enough with the heart-to-heart," he called out. "Let us end this." "No!" Clara shouted, a spark of defiance igniting her voice. "You don't have to do this." In that moment, the energy shifted. The threatening figures paused, startled by her fervor. Even Marcus felt the weight of her resolve. "You don't know what you're messing with," she pressed, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "You can't just threaten me and think I'll back down." "Really?" The knife wielder sneered, glancing at his companion. "You sure about that?" Before he could react, Clara lunged forward. She grabbed the edge of the man's coat, pulling him off balance just enough for Marcus to shove him away. In that instant, the shadows closed in, their laughter echoing coldly, the rain seemingly wishing to wash away the blood that was about to spill. But Marcus wasn't thinking about failure anymore. He was thinking about hope, about the truth that was finally unfurling before him. "We have to run," he yelled, but as he turned to grab Clara's hand, he realized she was still standing her ground, fists clenched. "Get ready," she shouted, raising her voice above the noise, pulling something small and metallic from her pocket. Marcus realized it was a small device, a panic button. "Clara, what are you doing?" He couldn't comprehend her next move. "I'm calling for help," she said, pressing it frantically. A moment of heavy silence fell, as if the world were holding its breath. Then came the sound of sirens in the distance, a wailing promise of salvation or doom. The attackers shifted, their eyes darting with uncertainty. "Get out of here," she urged. Then pain etched itself onto her face as the knife wielder regained his composure, rushing towards them. "Run!" Marcus didn't hesitate this time. He grabbed her hand, pulling her alongside him as they bolted down the alley. The pounding of footsteps behind them grew louder, but he felt a pulse of adrenaline surge through him, burning away the fear. This was over. What awaited them beyond the shadows was a deeper truth, one that might shatter everything he thought he knew about Clara. Would they reach safety in time, or was the twisted web of her past about to consume them both? The sirens were close, but were they close enough? The darkness clung to them, hungry for their downfall. As they reached the street, gasping for air, a figure loomed before them, backlit by a streetlight, a selling point for salvation or danger. What would happen next? Who had arrived to take them from the grip of the storm? The figure stepped forward, emerging from the shadows like a specter in the night. The cold light flickered off a badge clipped to their belt, illuminating a familiar face. Officer Jenna Richards, a name that stirred cautious relief in Marcus's chest. "Marcus!" "Clara!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the cacophony of the storm. The recognition flickered in her eyes. She had seen trouble before, but this danger felt different. "What is going on?" "Get behind me!" The rush of adrenaline was replaced by a wave of hesitant hope. They hadn't been abandoned after all. Marcus pulled Clara closer, their hearts racing in tandem, as the siren's wail faded into a desperate quiet. Clara's expression shifted from horror to something softer, a flicker of trust awakening in her eyes. But the attackers weren't deterred. The knife wielder snarled, stepping toward Officer Richards, the glint of metal reflecting his fury. "Get out of the way, cop!" This doesn't concern you. Doesn't it? Jenna stood her ground, resolve carving lines into her features. Marcus could see the tension creeping through her body, the same electric charge he'd felt just moments ago. It was wild and chaotic, yet strangely empowering. Run! Jenna shouted suddenly, breaking the spell. Without hesitation, Marcus spun to pull Clara with him, ready to escape the clutches of these shadows. But she resisted, her eyes locked on Jenna, a lifeline he was afraid to let go. What do we do? Clara whispered, frantic. Stick together. He yelled back, the words spilling out. Jenna will hold them off. In that heartbeat, two more figures emerged from the darkness, flanking the knife wielder. The laughter returned, raw and chilling, as one of them raised the metal pipe like a grim trophy. The night felt alive, spinning with danger. Clara, now! Marcus squeezed her hand, his pulse like thunder in his ears. They needed to act quickly. Jenna moved with a fierce intensity, revealing her weapon as she shouted, "You don't want to do this." The tension was palpable, the air thick with unspoken threats. Yet Clara hesitated, her eyes darting between Jenna and the oncoming attackers. I can't just leave her. Please, it's not worth it, Marcus urged, his voice tight with urgency. The raw emotion flooded him, fear for Clara, for Jenna, for all the unknowns lying just beyond the shadows. But before he could pull her away, the knife wielder lunged, slashing through the space between them with lethal grace. Jenna stepped forward, determined to stand her ground and shield them. Criminal scum. You think you can? Just a violent crash cut through the air as the pipe met the concrete. Shattered yells echoed back, and Clara's hand slipped from Marcus's grasp. In an instant, everything fell into chaos. Clara! Marcus screamed, fear igniting in his chest as he turned to face her, only to see her lunging toward Jenna, fearless. What are you doing? What I should be done a long time ago, she shouted, pulling the panic button from her pocket again. But this time, there was no time for explanations. The attackers charged, and the sirens faded as Clara pressed the button. He could only watch, dread pooling deep in his gut. Would help come in time? What more did Clara know that she wasn't sharing? As the first blow fell, a metallic crack filled the air, the last sound before everything plunged into chaos. And in the heart of the storm, surrounded by shadows seeking their end, Marcus felt the truth beat against the walls of his heart. What was the debt that had ensnared Clara? Could they survive this only to discover more secrets? Panic washed over Marcus, suffocating him like an icy wave as Clara charged toward Jenna. Time slowed, every heartbeat thudding painfully in his chest. He lunged forward, desperate to pull Clara back from danger. Clara, no! He shouted, but the words were drowned out by the clamor of feet on pavement, the wild laughter of their attackers slicing through the air like a blade. The knife glinted dangerously as the attacker lunged. Jenna's gun barked, a shockwave of sound that rattled Marcus to his bones. The bullet ricocheted off the sidewalk, sending up a spray of concrete shards. Clara stumbled, hesitation flickering across her face. Get down! Jenna barked again, her voice sharp, filled with authority. Marcus barely registered the sound of gunfire. His focus was solely on Clara. What was she thinking? He darted forward, ducking just in time as another blow rained down, narrowly missing him. The storm pulled around them, rain blurring the chaos that was unfolding. 3 figures. Too many. The knife wielder lunged at Jenna, who sidestepped with surprising agility. But then one of the other assailants, the one with the pipe, swung low. The crunch of metal on bone was sickening, and Marcus almost lost his grip on reality. No, 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 he murmured, despair creeping in as he forced himself to act. He couldn't stand by. Somehow, he needed to protect them both. Clara! He called again, seeing her frozen in shocked disbelief. Was she really willing to sacrifice everything? Just for a moment of defiance against shadows that loomed so large? And then it hit him, the panic button. The lifeline Clara had clung to, a sliver of hope in this storm. Would it really bring help? Or would it only expose them to more danger? Press it! He screamed over the mayhem. Now! But Clara hesitated, eyes darting between the violent struggle ahead and Marcus. The light within her seemed flickering. It was as if she was fighting an internal battle just as fierce as the one unfolding outside. Trust me. His voice cut through the chaos, fierce yet pleading. Please! With a sharp breath, Clara pressed the button, and the silence felt palpable as they waited, breaths held tight. In that heartbeat, everything changed. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, breaking the tension like a dam bursting. But the attackers weren't finished. Realizing their time was short, they pressed forward, gritting their teeth, eyes gleaming with malevolence. Let us finish this. The knife-wielder roared, swinging his blade. Run! Jenna shouted as she fired again, but this time the bullet hit its mark. A shout broke from the attacker, but it only fueled their frenzy. They surged forward, and Marcus grabbed Clara's arm, forcing her to her feet. We can't stay here. Clara's breath was ragged next to him, the wind whipping her hair back like a frantic banner. What about Jenna? Focus! Just before he could finish, a thud echoed, the sound of bodies colliding. Marcus turned, just in time to see Jenna wrestle with the knife-wielder. She was fierce, but he could see the strain in her eyes. Get out of here! She shouted again, and this time it was desperate. In a flash, Marcus pulled Clara away, turning toward a narrow alleyway that led to the street beyond. This way. Behind them, Jenna's voice echoed out, a clash of metal and fury. As they darted into the alley, Marcus glanced back one last time. Shadows flickered, violence, chaos, and bravery wrapped into one furious moment. Then, they were engulfed in darker shadows, invisible to the terror behind them. The sirens rang out in the distance, a promise of help, but would it arrive before it was too late? Marcus pushed onward, silent fear consuming him. What truly lay ahead? What did Clara now withhold, tangled in secrets that could change everything? As they emerged onto the street, breathless and frantic, they stopped short. Ahead, standing silhouetted against the flashing lights, were figures he never expected to see again. Could they find safety when the past was refusing to let go? The figures stepped forward, the glow of police lights creating sharp edges in the darkness. Marcus squinted, heart hammering as recognition hit him like a brick. Jake? He gasped, disbelief coating his voice. The expression on Jake's face shifted rapidly from confusion to relief, then back to worry. What are you doing here? Are you okay? Clara's grip tightened around Marcus's arm. She looked at Jake with wide eyes, uncertainty swirling in her expression. Memories of past betrayals and misunderstandings danced between them, taunting. Where is Jenna? Jake's voice sliced through the tension as his gaze flickered behind them. Back there, Marcus shouted, his words tinged with desperation. She is fighting them. We need to help her. Jake took a step back, anxiety cresting. You don't understand. There is something larger at play here. Marcus's patience frayed, panic slicing into his thoughts. What do you mean? You're talking like we're not in immediate danger. A shout echoed from the direction of the alley they had just fled, panic rising like bile in Marcus's throat. Focus, Jake. We can't waste time. With a reluctant nod, Jake turned. All right, then let us check on her. But I need you both to understand. Understand what? Clara interrupted sharply, her voice trembling with urgency. What is going on? As they tore toward the alley, Jake shot a glance back over his shoulder, lowering his voice. What you went through, the dangers that followed. It's all connected. They've been watching you, Clara. It's not just us, it's bigger. Marcus winced, a jolt of fear lancing through him. What the hell does that mean? We can't keep secrets now. Clara's eyes darted between the two men, grounding herself in the storm. Just tell me what I should do. I want to go down without a fight. The sound of scuffling grew nearer, the crack of Jenna's gun echoing again. They reached the mouth of the alley, hesitant, adrenaline racing through their veins. Shadows danced around the corner, flickering with danger. Stay close, Jake warned, stepping ahead. We take them by surprise. Marcus nodded, pulling Clara in closer. He could feel her heartbeat against his arm, steady, fierce. But a shadow of doubt loomed over him. What if the truths Jake was hiding changed everything? What if they couldn't trust him at all? They crept forward, and then Marcus pushed through the narrow gap. The cold night air prickled his skin, and he felt Clara's breath hitch behind him. Then there was a sickening crunch. The knife wielder had Jenna pinned against the cracked brick wall. It's over, the assailant growled, gritting his teeth. In an instant, Clara surged forward, moving like lightning. Without hesitation, she lunged, her face a mask of fierce determination. Let her go! Clara, don't! Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The blade flashed in the dim light. A scream pierced the air. Was it Clara or Jenna? He couldn't tell. As adrenaline pounded in his ears, he charged forward, ready to tear the dangerous night apart for those he loved. But then, as if the heavens conspired against them, more shadows enveloped them, and a terrible realization dawned. There were more of them. In that heart-stopping moment, their attacker circled, eyes gleaming with dark intent. And for the first time, fear rooted Marcus to the ground, gnawing at his resolve. What had he gotten them into? And would they all survive to find out the truth? The answer lingered in the air as Marcus faced the chaos closing in, his heart racing. How would he fight when everything seemed lost? The shadows tightened around them, swirling like a storm. Marcus could see the gleam of weapons in the darkness, hear the soft whispers of his attackers plotting their next moves. Panic rose in his throat as he fought to steady his breath. Jenna! He screamed again, desperation coursing through his veins. But in a moment, that desperation shifted to fight-or-flight instincts, igniting a flame of anger within. Get back! Jake shouted, shoving Marcus aside as the attackers lunged from the corners of the alley. Marcus stumbled, momentarily losing his balance. Clara surged past him, fierce and undeterred. We're not backing down, she shouted, her voice cracking like thunder. She brandished a steel pipe she had picked up along the way, and the sight filled Marcus with a strange mixture of pride and fear. He realized they weren't just victims, they were warriors now. But as he regained his footing, a second figure emerged from the shadows, a man as massive as an oak, eyes glinting with ferocity. Marcus's heart sank. Clara, watch out! He yelled, but it felt like a scream lost in the wind. The massive assailant swung at Clara, missing her by mere inches as she ducked, spinning away with agility. Her determination was palpable, but Marcus could see the exhaustion settling in her stance. They were outnumbered, and the odds were stacked like a terrible game of cards. Jenna! We have to find her! He shouted again, pushing through the clamor of chaos. He glanced at Jake, whose face was a mask of tension, as he took on two of the attackers, throwing punches like they were mere air. Then they heard the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. Fear ricocheted in Marcus's chest, as if someone had slapped him awake. Stop right there! Shouted a furious voice. They turned, and there was Jenna, a fierce glare on her face, gun aimed steadfast at the group. But her hands were trembling, and Marcus could see her resolve waver, attention darting to Clara. Just let them go, Jenna commanded, voice a low growl. This is between us. Jenna, you can't. Marcus called, wanting to shake her, wanting to pull her back from the edge. But there was a glimmer in her eyes, defiance mixed with fear. Enough games. One of the attackers hissed, taking a step closer, dark and looming like a predatory animal. You think you know what you're dealing with? You have no idea. Marcus felt the ground beneath him shift, like everything was about to collapse. What do you mean? He yelled, anger boiling over and desperation merging, as he realized the stakes were far higher than he ever imagined. Enough of this, screamed the man pinning Jenna. He charged forward without warning. Time seemed to slow as Jenna's expression shifted from determination to sheer terror, and Marcus's veins ran cold. Jenna squeezed the trigger. A deafening bang echoed through the alley, silencing all chaos for an eternal heartbeat. Marcus's insides clenched. He could hardly breathe. Did she hit him? In that single moment, everything turned upside down. Someone fell to the ground, but it wasn't he, the attacker. Clara stood there, panic etched on her features, blood blooming across her shirt. No! Marcus roared, a primal scream erupting from deep within his chest. He surged forward, everything else fading into a distant blur. But a cold grip clasped his shoulder, Jake's grip anchoring him. Stay focused. We can't let it all end here. The world around them fuzzed, melding into indistinct movements of fear and chaos, the echo of screams and shouts flooding his senses. His heart pounded, raw and exposed. Who could he trust now? The night was heavy with uncertainty, as Marcus faced the turmoil brewing before him. Would he have to fight the very people he loved the most? As the shadows stretched back, revealing more unknown assailants, the stakes sharpened like a knife's edge. Would they make it out alive? Or would the truths behind their betrayal shatter them all? The next piece of this terrifying puzzle loomed like a dark cloud on the horizon. What horrors awaited them in the depths of the truth? The blast of the gun echoed like a death knell. Time spiraled into chaos again as Marcus's heart raced, his mind stuck on the sight of Clara collapsing. Adrenaline surged through him, powerful and blinding. He broke free from Jake's grip and lunged toward her, the world around him a blur of dark shapes and muffled sounds. Clara! Fear tore at his throat, raw and ragged. He dropped to his knees beside her, the gritty pavement rough against his skin. Blood pooled beneath her, soaking through her shirt, the crimson stark against the dimness, a horrific contrast. No, no, no! He gasped, pressing his hands down on the wound, his palms slick with warmth. He could hardly breathe. He had to save her. Get back! Jenna shouted, waving her gun, trying to intimidate the shadows creeping closer, her voice sharp with panic. Marcus glanced up. The massive figure loomed still, seemingly unfazed, while the others darted in, calculating and menacing. Jake launched himself at the nearest assailant, but they swarmed like ants, intent on overpowering him. Keep them away. Marcus's voice crumbled, but he pushed through, gaze locked on Clara's face. Her eyes were glazed, but there was a flicker of fight behind the fear. Stay with me, he pleaded, feeling the world closing in. Help is coming, I swear. Marcus? Clara's voice was a whisper, trembling like a candle's flame in the wind. I don't know, no, he shouted, shaking her gently, desperation clawing at his core. You're not leaving me, Clara. Suddenly, the sound of a scuffle drew his attention. Jake took a hit to the jaw, staggering back, while Jenna fired another shot. The bullet ricocheted off a nearby dumpster, echoing like a warning through the alley. Come on! As too many Marcus's words faded into the air, replaced by raw survival instinct. He couldn't think of anything else but fending off the darkness creeping too close. Look out! Jake yelled, an instant before another attacker lunged at them. The man's fist came swinging down at Marcus. In one swift move, he ducked and shifted, feeling the air of the punch whoosh above him. His heart pounded as he rolled to the side, scrambling for Clara. Jenna's gun jammed, a sputtering sound cutting through the chaos. She cursed under her breath, eyes darting for another weapon. "Help her!" Marcus yelled, the frantic urgency propelling him forward again. "Hold on!" Clara gasped, clutching his hand, her grip weak but unwavering. He tore off his shirt, pressing it against her wound in a frantic attempt to staunch the flow of blood. "Just focus on my voice." But then fear wrapped around him. What if it wasn't enough? What if he'd lost her? Panic blurred his vision, drowning him in despair. He pressed harder, desperate for her to stay with him, their shared memories flashing through his mind, the late-night talks, laughter echoing in old rooms, adventures planned but never taken. "Get up!" Jake shouted, finally managing to throw off his attacker. He rushed over, offering Marcus a brief moment of relief. "We can't hold them off, Marcus. We need to get out." "No! We're not leaving her." The words erupted out of Marcus like a dam breaking. The situation felt hopeless, yet there was a flicker of determination in the pit of his stomach. Clara was fighting to hold on, and he would too. The shadows distorted around them, louder and more menacing. The attackers advanced, looming figures against the night. Every heartbeat felt like thunder, drowning out everything else. What would happen next? Then a voice broke through, familiar yet hauntingly twisted, catching Marcus off guard. "Such a mess you've gotten yourselves into," and suddenly, the shadows seemed to twist even deeper. Jenna's head snapped around, eyes wide, and Marcus felt an ice-cold shiver creep down his spine. Who had spoken? The echo of that chilling voice stirred a new fear, one that set adrenaline coursing through him afresh. There were layers to this fight, he understood. With Clara taking shallow breaths beneath his hands and dangers closing in, he had to find the truth. But would it lead to salvation or destruction? The night was far from over, and the revelation still lay hidden beneath the surface. What else were they about to face? Marcus felt the world narrowing around him, collapsing in on itself like a dying star. Clara's face grew pale, the warmth of her blood soaking through his fingers. He couldn't focus on anything else. The chaotic sounds of the world faded, leaving only the rapid thudding of his heart pounding in his ears. "Help is coming," he chanted like a lifeline. "Just hold on, Clara. Stay with me. Please." Her eyes flickered, shadows lining the edges of her gaze. Was it despair? Fear? He couldn't tell. A surge of anger and terror flooded his chest, threatening to choke him. The shadows creeping closer were not just men, they were monsters, and they intended to take everything from him. Jake was shouting somewhere, his voice cutting through the fog of panic. "Get back. You can't do this." There was no time to consider what was happening around him. They were outnumbered, and Clara needed him. "Marcus, you have to," Clara whispered, her voice strained. But he couldn't let her finish. He pressed his shirt harder against the wound, trying to staunch the blood, feeling the life slipping away from him. "No, no," he breathed, panic clawing at his throat. Suddenly, from the darkness, the massive figure of the knife-wielder surged forward. Without thinking, Marcus shoved Clara's hand away from his, and pushed her behind him, instinct strong as a spring tide. "Get away!" he shouted, his fists clenched, adrenaline sharpening his senses. He was ready to fight. He had to be. But the shadows were ruthless, and they moved as one, each swing of their fists like thunder. Jake stumbled again, forced toward a wall as the attackers closed in. Jenna was still trying to regain control, firing shots that hung in the air like shattered glass, ringing out into the night. "Focus on Clara," Jenna yelled, her voice strained. But Marcus couldn't tear his gaze away from the impending chaos. "We need to get her out of here." It was a roar, primal and fierce. They were swirling in a maelstrom of threats and violence, the weight of the moment pressing down hard. Time blurred as conflict erupted around them. Marcus felt the fist of a shadowy figure connect with his side, pain surging through him. He staggered, but then fury ignited in his veins, propelling him forward. "Stand back." He threw a punch, hitting one man squarely in the jaw. He felt the satisfaction of that connection reverberate through his body like music. But there was no time for victory. The knife wielder was back on him, eyes blazing with hatred. They struggled, wrestling for control, as Marcus felt the darkness pressing close, threatening to swallow him whole. "Jake!" he shouted. "Do something!" They were outmatched, and everything around them spiraled furiously. Jake was grappling with another assailant, trying to hold him back while Jenna looked for a shot, but there were too many. "Back away, Marcus. We can't keep this up." Jake gasped, moving side to side, trying to fend off the crowd. But just as defeat threatened to swallow them, a distant sound drew nearer. The unmistakable wail of sirens grew louder, slicing through the din with relentless assurance. But would they arrive in time? Conflict surged again, Marcus breaking off the fight to check on Clara, only to find her eyes glistening with tears of fear mixed with pain. "I'm right here," he pushed his words, desperate to keep her grounded. "Marcus," she whispered, as shadows grew closer, threatening to consume them all. "We're going to be okay, right?" "It's going to be okay," he promised, voice thick with emotion. Bright red and blue lights danced in the distance, washing over the alley like salvation. But a fresh wave of attackers surged forward, moving to take advantage of the moment of fear. "I can't let them take me!" Clara shouted suddenly, fighting pain and panic both. "I owe it to you to fight." And fight she did. As Marcus moved to protect her, Clara turned, clutching the panic button tightly. With ferocity, she yelled, "Get back! You couldn't win even if you tried." The shadows hesitated, confusion flickering in their eyes. And as if on cue, the sirens blared louder, the lights flashing brighter. "They're here!" Jenna called, relief evident in her voice. In that instant, the shadows hesitated again, uncertainty clouding their fierce resolve. The warmth of relief washed over Marcus, but it was tinged with urgency. Their arrival could mean everything. "Now!" Marcus shouted, grabbing Clara's hand, pulling her to her feet. "We have to stick together." As they pushed forward, the attackers began to flee, panic flooding their faces as the police sirens pierced through the night. Jenna, Jake, and Marcus watched as the shadows dissipated. Clara managed a weak smile, eyes bright with a glimmer of hope, a promise of strength yet undiscovered. But even as they sought safety in the arms of the officers arriving, Marcus could feel the weight of everything he'd just confronted. Clara was more than just a victim. She was entwined in something larger. Dark secrets still lingered in the corners of her eyes that begged to be revealed. His heart raced, the reality of their fight settling in. As the officers began assessing the situation, Marcus felt a newfound determination flicker inside him. They were victorious today, but there were deeper truths yet to uncover. Clara squeezed his hand tighter, and in that moment, he knew they would face it together. "Whatever else comes next, Clara, we'll get through it," he promised, resolve hardening in his chest. The truth was coming. It was just a matter of time. As Clara looked toward him, they held their breaths, ready to face the aftermath of shadows that had plagued them, united in their fight against the darkness, no matter what lay ahead. Now, as the dawn broke over the horizon, the world felt a little brighter, a little more hopeful, and they were ready to chase down the truth together. Before you go, you need to subscribe now to stay up to date with the brand new exclusive stories coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button if you felt a thrill reading the conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions. What did you think of how it all ended? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the adventure.